Before the dawn bell tolls, the world lies trapped beneath a frozen breath. Snow presses against the battlements like a siege of ghosts, and wind prowls through arrow slits, seeking the warmth of men. Within Thornvale Castle, every stone shudders, yet it stands, unmoving, proud as an old soldier before an endless storm. The fire in the great hall gutters low, casting trembling halos across the flagstones. Lord Alaric listens to the wind as if it speaks a language he alone understands. Lady Eveline draws her cloak tighter, tracing frost on the window with one steady finger. Beyond the walls, the stable roofs sag under the weight of snow. And somewhere, a boy's footsteps echo faintly through the corridor. Winter has arrived not as a season, but as an empire, and every soul within these walls must now remember the ancient art of survival. The storm deepens, pressing its voice into every joint of Thornvale's stone heart. In the great hall, the long tables sit bare. No laughter, no feasting, only the soft hiss of logs surrendering to flame. A tapestry ripples faintly where the cold slips in unseen. The echo of boots against flagstone carries far, each sound a reminder of the void that winter leaves behind. Lord Alaric stands at the head of the hall, listening to the timbers creak as if they speak secrets of survival. Lady Eveline moves through the shadows with quiet authority, her steps purposeful, arranging candles, closing shutters, instructing unseen hands. In the silence, fire becomes their only language, a whispering oracle, promising endurance. The walls breathe with heat and frost in equal measure, and beneath the flickering light, the old castle seems alive, its bones murmuring, "We have weathered worse." Edric works in silence, the rhythm of his breath, the only sound beneath the castle's groaning weight. His fingers trace the mortar seams, feeling for warmth the way a healer feels for a pulse. He mutters to himself, half prayer, half calculation, recalling the ancient builders who shaped stone to outlast winter's wrath. Snowmelt trickles from a crack overhead, darkening the rock, and he smiles grimly. The enemy is always water. Above him, unseen, the Lord and Lady sleep, their comfort resting on his hands. The mason pauses, leans close to the wall, and presses his ear to the stone. It hums softly, the castle's living breath drawn through flues, vents, and secret hollows. The storm may rage, but here within the bones of Thornvale, heat moves like blood, carrying the wheel of centuries. In the kitchen, the fire roars, like an ancient god roused from slumber. Maris stirs a cauldron thick with herbs and root vegetables, her arms glistening with heat and sweat. Around her, the walls weep condensation. The air is a symphony of crackles, hisses, and sighs. She hums a tune older than memory, her voice trembling with warmth amid the cold. The kitchen is the heart of Thornvale. Every corridor draws from it, every breath owes it life. She tosses handfuls of ash into the hearth, shaping its flame as though weaving cloth. A page boy peers from the doorway, eyes wide with hunger and awe. Maris laughs softly, ladles broth into a wooden bowl, and hands it to it. "Drink," she murmurs. "And remember, heat feeds hope." Outside, the storm bell tolls once, muffled and low, as though even the wind bows to her flame. Night drapes itself over Thornvale like a heavy shroud. The fires burn low, embers pulsing like hearts within the stone. Tobin creeps through the corridor, carrying a single candle cupped in both hands. Its small light dances against the damp walls, revealing faces of saints carved long ago, their eyes hollow yet kind. The boy pauses, listening. The wind moans beyond the arrow slits, and for a moment he feels utterly alone. Then, faintly, he hears laughter from the kitchen, a whisper of life. He smiles, steadies his grip, and continues toward the tower stairs. Each step he takes leaves a dark footprint in the frost. Above, in the Lord's chamber, the hearth sighs. The flame he carries may be small, but within this frozen fortress, it is everything. A spark against eternity, defiance shaped in wax and courage. Morning comes pale and merciless, its light too thin to warm the frost. Lord Alaric walks the battlements, his boots grinding over ice, each breath rising in silver clouds. The storm has eased, leaving a silence so complete that even the walls seem to listen. Beneath his feet, the castle hums faintly, warmth moving through hidden veins. He knows the secret well. A castle's strength lies not only in stone, but in the way it breathes. The walls draw in heat, trap it deep within their bellies, and release it slowly through the night. Below, Edric stokes the subfloor flues, feeding fire into the heart of the structure. The Lord smiles faintly. Architecture is not merely defense, it is endurance. As the sun crawls over the horizon, Thornvale glows like an ember, refusing to die. In the narrow crawl spaces beneath the floors, Edric moves through tunnels that only the builders remember. The walls here sweat with moisture, the air thick with heat and ash. His lantern glows dull orange, revealing the channels carved centuries ago. Arteries of fire running beneath the castle's skin. He murmurs to Tobin, who follows with a basket of kindling, teaching the boy how warmth travels unseen, how stone itself can learn to live. Above, the great hall's cold floors glow faintly from below, the unseen fire breathing life into its bones. The mason's voice echoes, "A wall is only strong when it knows how to share its heat." The boy listens, eyes wide, understanding that survival is not a matter of strength, but of knowledge. Lady Eveline oversees the castle's transformation with silent command. She orders tapestries hung on every wall, rushes strewn thick upon the floors, and shutters sealed with waxed cloth. Servants move swiftly under her gaze, layering warmth where the eye might never notice. She knows the value of detail. A single uncovered crack could steal a room's heart in a single night. As she moves through the corridors, candlelight paints her reflection upon the walls, merging her with the fortress she protects. In this domain of cold and cunning, her strength is patience, her weapon foresight. When Alaric enters, their eyes meet briefly. No words, only understanding. She defends from within as he guards from without. Together they command not just a castle, but an organism built to outlast winter's reign. Evening descends again and the fires roar. The great hall becomes a sanctuary of smoke and murmured conversation. Lord Alaric sits near the hearth, his hands outstretched to the blaze, listening to the hiss of burning oak. The storm outside claws at the windows, but here, the walls hold steady, breathing warmth like an animal at rest. Edric approaches, bowing slightly before explaining the new air shafts he has opened. Narrow throats for the castle to exhale. Alaric nods, his eyes tracing the flicker of firelight dancing across the stonework. "Good," he murmurs. "Let it breathe." In this moment, the gulf between lord and craftsman vanishes. Both are servants to the same god, the flame. As smoke twists upward into the rafters, the hall glows like the inside of a living furnace, a cathedral devoted to survival. Long after midnight, Thornvale sleeps. The wind wails through the valley, its voice fading against the weight of stone. Yet within the walls, something stirs. The faint pulse of heat, rising from deep flues, the slow sigh of expanding rock. The camera glides through sleeping chambers, across heavy blankets and glimmering coals. This is the castle's secret. It endures not through might, but through movement. Warmth flowing invisibly, a constant whisper beneath the silence. Lady Eveline turns in her sleep beside the hearth, her shadow flickering against woven beasts. In the corridor, Tobin checks a torch, its flames steady. Below, Edric smiles in his dreams, hearing the hum of his handiwork. Thornvale breathes alive, ancient, unyielding. A creature of fire wrapped in armor of frost. Before dawn, Thornvale wakes not to sunlight, but to the sound of kindling snapping. In the depths of the great kitchen, sparks leap like restless souls as Maris bends over the hearth, coaxing flame from slumber. Smoke rolls against the low beams, carrying the scent of oak, grease, and bread long gone. Around her, servants stir. A quiet army of warmth-bearers, each tending a smaller fire that will feed another. This is the true rhythm of the castle. Not banners or swords, but the ritual of flame. Outside, snow piles against the walls. The world is pale and unforgiving. Yet, within, the red glow of the hearth paints life upon every face it touches. Maris hums to the fire as if it were a child. She must raise through the cold. "Breathe, my love," she whispers, and the flame answers with a roar. By noon, the hall thrums with life once more. Bread steams, cups clink, and laughter ricochets off the vaulted roof. The fire at the center burns bright, fed constantly by Maris' unseen hand. Lord Alaric presides at the long table, his voice echoing low as he speaks of provisions, fortifications, and the promise of spring. Yet, beneath the talk of governance runs something simpler. Gratitude. Each man and woman here knows what the cold can take, and how close it lingers. They drink not for revelry, but for endurance. Lady Eveline raises a cup to her lips and closes her eyes, savoring the fleeting heat that rolls through her chest. For this brief hour, the castle is alive, stone, fire, and flesh united in defiance of the endless frost beyond. Later, in the courtyard, Edric gathers the young pages near a soot-stained vent. Snow falls lightly, melting on his calloused hands. He draws a crude diagram in the slush, explaining how fire moves, how air feeds it, how stone remembers it. "The wall breathes," he says, tapping the ground. "Without air, even fire dies." Tobin listens, his face bright despite the cold. The old mason's words are more than teaching. They are scripture, passed from craftsman to child. Around them, Thornvale exhales steam through its hidden flues, living proof of his craft. When the bell tolls for supper, Edric stands slowly, joints creaking, and glances at the tower above. "Every breath counts," he murmurs, as the children scatter back into the warmth. As night gathers, Lady Eveline retreats to her chamber, the air heavy with lavender and smoke. She moves slowly, tracing her fingers along the velvet drapery, testing for drafts. The hearth flickers low. Shadows of carved angels flutter across the walls. From a chest, she removes a brass warming pan, filled with coals from the great fire, and slips it beneath the bedclothes. The hiss is soft, the comfort immediate. She sits by the window, staring at the snowbound courtyard, her face haloed by the orange glow. There is grace in her solitude, the quiet knowledge that comfort must be built, not found. Outside, the wind moans like a beast denied. Inside, she folds her hands and closes her eyes, not in prayer, but in gratitude for the fragile miracle of warmth. Midnight returns, and Thornvale sleeps under its mantle of silence. Only the embers remain, faint, pulsing hearts in the vast body of the castle. She carries a small poker and a pot of oil, feeding life where it falters. Her footsteps echo softly against the stone, a rhythm older than prayer. When she reaches the Lord's hearth, she pauses, staring into the coals. The reflection of her face trembles there, one with the flame she serves. She whispers, "Stay with them," as if addressing an old friend. Outside, the storm prowls again, pressing claws against the shutters, but Thornvale endures. The walls hum, the air stirs, and somewhere deep within the stone, a quiet warmth flows, unseen, unfailing. The hearth within. The morning frost creeps across Thornvale like an army of glass. Servants hurry through corridors, arms full of furs and woolens, their breath clouding the air. In his chamber, Lord Alaric sits near the window, fastening the thick leather ties of his undertunic. Layer upon layer, he builds his armor. Linen, wool, then fur. the invisible shield against winter's assault. He speaks little, but his eyes soften as Lady Eveline enters, her gown draped with fox fur and lined in scarlet. She watches him dress as she might a soldier going to battle, and perhaps he is. The cold spares no rank, no lineage. Only preparation wins. Together they step toward the window, watching the courtyard below fill with steam from morning fires. Even stone must wear its armor, Alaric murmurs. She smiles faintly, and so must we. In the servants' quarters, warmth is earned, not given. Maris oversees a line of young attendants bundling themselves in linen shifts, wool hose, and patched cloaks. The air smells of tallow and wool grease. Laughter ripples as one girl jokes about wearing her bedding to work. Maris grins. Humor is the only fabric that never frays. She helps Tobin knot a wool scarf twice around his neck, tugging it snug with maternal care. Keep your throat warm and your spirit warmer, she says, tucking a loose strand beneath his collar. The castle above may glitter with nobility, but down here, survival is a shared ritual, a daily ceremony of cloth and courage. As dusk settles, Thornvale's cold sharpens. In the stables, the breath of horses steams like mist over the straw. Servants prepare the sleeping chambers for the bitter night ahead. Lady Eveline walks the rows of pallets, ensuring each blanket is thick, each brazier filled. In the Lord's chamber, 3 hounds curl at the foot of the bed, their coarse fur rising and falling in rhythm with the firelight. Alaric chuckles softly. You see, my dear, they are loyal even in sleep. Eveline smiles. They're wiser than men. They've found the warmest place. The flames flicker, throwing long shadows of beast and master across the wall. The term 3-dog night is born not from jest but from necessity. Life and warmth intertwined, fur against flesh, heart against heart. The castle grows still. Candles gutter, shadows stretch across the corridors like frozen rivers. In her chamber, Lady Eveline performs her nightly rite, folding the furs precisely, stirring the coals, sealing the shutters. Each act is deliberate, part prayer, part strategy. She slips beneath layers of wool, listening to the faint hum of wind beyond the stone. Across the hall, Alaric lies awake, watching the embers fade. In the silence, their breathing synchronizes. 2 heartbeats joined by the warmth they've built. The storm outside growls, but within, time slows to the pulse of survival. The fire sighs. The walls settle. Every flicker of flame becomes a heartbeat in the long night's chest. Dawn returns as a thin whisper of light crawling across the battlements. The storm has passed, leaving a stillness so profound it hums. Maris and Tobin move through the sleeping halls, refilling braziers, checking for frostbite among the guards. Every chamber they enter holds traces of warmth, a folded cloak, a curled dog, a faint ember still breathing. They laugh softly, sharing stolen crumbs of bread, and for the first time, Tobin feels the castle's heartbeat as his own. Upstairs, Lady Eveline opens the shutters. Sunlight floods the room, turning frost into glitter. Lord Alaric joins her, wrapping his cloak around them both. The cold, he says, teaches us how to keep what matters. She nods, resting her head against his shoulder as the castle exhales steam like a dragon waking from its sleep. When noble halls fall silent, it is the humble who keep them breathing. Before sunrise, servants stir in the undercroft, their world lit by torchlight and sweat. Ash clings to their skin like armor. Maris leads them in the old rhythm, clearing the night's embers, stoking the new fires, feeding life back into the castle's hollow veins. Tobin drags a bundle of logs twice his size, his small hands reddened by the cold, yet his grin never fades. The Lord's dream, Maris mutters, but we keep them warm enough to dream at all. Her words hang in the smoky air like incense, Each spark they strike is a prayer, each flame a heartbeat. And though their names will never be etched into stone, Thornvale's warmth belongs to them, the unseen servants of the flame. Throughout the day, warmth travels not through magic, but through human endurance. Young pages, maids, and grooms carry hot stones wrapped in linen, from hearth to chamber, from chamber to tower. The corridors fill with the rhythm of their steps, their laughter echoing between walls. Tobin leads a line of them, face flushed with effort, pride gleaming in his eyes. Above, the lords and ladies feel comfort, unaware of the pilgrimage beneath. Heat moves like mercy, passed from hand to hand, fading slowly but never dying. The castle breathes because they never rest. In winter, fire is not just fuel, it is faith in motion. When the castle sleeps, others keep vigil. The night watchmen patrol the walls, cloaked in sheepskin and silence. Frost bites at their lashes, their torches sputtering against the wind. Below, Maris and two older servants sit by the kitchen fire, counting logs and whispering stories of winters past, of years when the frost never broke, when hunger carved deeper than any blade. Each tale ends with laughter, brittle but defiant. In the courtyard, Tobin glimpses them through a window and feels a warmth no fire could grant. Above, the stars shimmer like sparks scattered from the earth's own forge. Thornvale stands unbroken, its people glowing against the darkness. Not all warmth is light. By late winter, the wood stores dwindle. Alaric counts the remaining logs with Edric, his brow furrowed. Each piece is a decision. Who will sleep warm, who will shiver? Below, Maris rations what's left for the kitchens, her hands trembling as she chooses between the hearth and the ovens. Even fire can breed guilt. Yet, as she looks toward Tobin, who still hums as he works, something steadies in her chest. "We'll make it last," she says, voice quiet but certain. Above, Eveline lights a single candle before the Virgin's carving and bows her head. Survival, she knows, is an act of faith measured in flame. At winter's end, the first thaw drips from the eaves like tears. The air tastes of promise and smoke. In the courtyard, servants gather, pale but smiling. Maris stands among them, her hands raw, her hair streaked with ash. Lord Alaric steps forward, holding a coal shovel, not as a tool but as a token. "The walls stood," he says, "but only because your hands gave them life." The servants bow awkwardly. Lady Eveline places a hand over her heart. "A castle's true strength," she says softly, "is not stone, but those who warm it." Around them, smoke rises like incense into the pale blue sky. For the first time in months, the cold retreats. The servants of the flame have prevailed. Spring has not yet come. The snow thins, but the wind still prowls. Within Thornvale, Edric walks the corridors with quiet pride. He sees the castle not as walls and towers, but as a living creature, ribs of stone, lungs of fire. He runs a hand along the walls, feeling the faint warmth that still lingers deep within. Alaric joins him, his boots echoing on the flagstones. "You built it well," he says. Edric shakes his head. "No, my lord. They did. The ones before me, we only keep it breathing." Together they stop beneath the great chimney that runs through the center of the keep, its heart glowing with the heat of centuries. The flame may fade, but its bones endure. Thornvale stands as proof that even in the cruelest cold, men once found a way to teach stone to hold memory. Deep beneath the great hall lies the secret heart of Thornvale, the network of flues and vents carved by generations long gone. Edric leads Tobin through the narrow tunnels, their lanterns painting the walls in flickering gold. He explains how air is drawn from the kitchens, fed through chambers, and released beneath the floors above. Heat is a patient traveler, he says. It moves slow, but never aimless. Tobin listens, wide-eyed, tracing his fingers along soot-slick stone. The boy understands, for the first time, that the castle itself is alive, that warmth is not given, but guided. When they emerge again into the daylight, both are marked by ash, their faces glowing with pride and the strange intimacy of knowledge earned by fire. Above ground, Lady Eveline commands her own quiet craft. She inspects each tapestry hung along the hallways, wool thick as armor, dyed deep crimson and blue. Her attendants stretch new hangings across the coldest walls, sewing their seams shut with beeswax-threaded cord. "Every layer matters," she says, watching the fabric sway with the warmth it traps. The hall feels softer, gentler, as if clothed in its own skin. She runs a hand across the embroidered hunts and saints, admiring the artistry born from necessity. To her, survival has always been a kind of beauty, patterns stitched over hardship, color against the gray. The walls, now dressed, seem to hum with gratitude. In the center of Thornvale's courtyard, half hidden by centuries of snow, lies an ancient structure few remember: a fire well. Edric clears the frost with his hammer, revealing a stone vent connected to the kitchens below. He explains its secret to Alaric, how the builders designed it to release excess heat upward, turning the courtyard's chill into mist. Even the air was guided, he says. Alaric kneels beside him, tracing the carvings worn by time, symbols of sun and flame. As they open the vent, warm vapor escapes, curling through the morning air like incense from the earth itself. For a moment, both men stand silently, humbled by the genius of forgotten hands. The cold has always been a teacher, and the lesson is this: warmth survives where wisdom builds it a path. As the last snows melt, Thornvale begins to breathe differently. Warmth no longer struggles, it flows. Fires burn lower, yet the air remains kind. Lady Eveline walks the corridors, touching the walls as though greeting an old friend. Maris laughs in the kitchen, now filled with light and the smell of baking bread. Edric rests by the flue he once built, eyes closed, listening to the heartbeat he gave the castle. On the tower, Alaric gazes across the valley, steam rising gently from the roofs like sighs of relief. "It was," he whispers. Below, the others cannot hear him, but they feel it. The pulse of stone, the memory of flame. Thornvale is no longer a fortress against the cold. It has become something rarer, a home that remembers warmth. The thaw begins not with fanfare, but with sound. The slow dripping of water from the eaves, the soft collapse of snow from the towers. Thornvale breathes, and for the first time in months, the air tastes of earth instead of frost. The courtyard becomes a mirror of meltwater, reflecting towers that once stood cloaked in ice. Lord Alaric walks its length in silence, boots sinking into the slush, eyes tracing the scars winter has left upon his fortress. Each crack, each stain tells a story of endurance. He kneels, scoops a handful of icy water, and lets it run through his fingers. Survival, he realizes, is never without cost, but neither is it without grace. From the battlements, Lady Eveline watches him and smiles. The storm has taken much, but it has given something greater. The knowledge that warmth is not granted, but made. That night the hall fills once more. Not for survival, but for celebration. Fires roar not from fear, but from joy. Bread, meat, and ale return to the tables, and laughter rolls like thunder through the rafters. Maris presides over the meal as proudly as any lord, her apron singed, her eyes bright with exhaustion. Tobin runs from guest to guest, cheeks flushed, carrying jugs of steaming cider. Lady Eveline raises her cup high. To warmth, the first fire, the last hope. Alaric echoes her toast, and the hall erupts in cheer. For a fleeting moment, winter's cruelty feels distant, replaced by gratitude that glows brighter than any flame. In this feast, they do not just eat. They honor every spark that kept them alive. Days later, Edric walks alone through the castle he has served for half his life. He stops at each wall, each arch, pressing his hand to the stone as though bidding farewell. In every corner he hears echoes, the crackle of fires, the laughter of servants, the murmur of wind through the vents. The work of his hands will outlive him. That is his comfort. He kneels beside the fire well in the courtyard, the same place where the first thaw began, and smiles faintly. "You'll breathe long after I'm gone," he murmurs. For men like him, legacy is not carved in marble or gold. It hums in the warmth that survives the cold. Above, Alaric watches from the tower, a silent salute to the man who taught stone to live. Tobin runs through the thawing fields beyond the castle walls, boots splashing through puddles, laughter echoing into the valley. In his satchel he carries a single coal, hooled and black, a relic from the winter gone. He pauses by a brook, kneels, and places it on the ground beside the water. The boy who once shivered in the corridors now smiles into the wind, no longer afraid of cold or silence. Behind him, Thornvale gleams against the pale horizon, the fortress that taught him the meaning of warmth. He does not yet know it, but one day he will return, no longer a page, but a build. He will teach others what Edric taught him, that every flame, no matter how small, is worth carrying. No, at dusk, the castle glows beneath a sky of molten orange and pale blue. Smoke rises from its chimneys, not in desperation but in peace. Lady Evelyn and Lord Alaric stand together on the battlements, watching the sun sink behind the valley. "It almost broke us," Evelyn whispers. "It remade us," Alaric replies. Below, Maris tends her fires, humming softly. Edric's flues breathe steady warmth, and Tobin's laughter drifts upward from the courtyard. The cold has passed, but its lesson endures. That comfort is not born of luxury, but of unity, of every hand, every act of faith. As night falls, the camera drifts outward, revealing Thornvale bathed in twilight mist. The narrator's final words echo like a prayer. The castles did not conquer the cold. They befriended it, and through it, they learned how to endure.